For many years now, Russ and Craig have had many wide-ranging conversations with folks from all over the gaming world. This is one of those conversations.
D6G, the Lost Chapter.
So, I mean, the best part was, like, did you see the ghost? Do you even watch Star Wars Rebels?
No, I don't, but I need another coffee, Craig. I'm getting a little tired here. Sir, I need a large, hot, extra
Raef,
yes.
Raef, do you watch Star Wars Rebels?
No, but I want to.
Oh, for the love of God. Get coffee and go sit down. And we need to be quiet because we don't want to spoil this for anybody.
This is the hardest part about talking about Rogue One is you got to whisper because you don't want to spoil it for anyone.
Yeah. I mean, we were in the middle of La Carreta last night, and we were both like, shh, 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 shh.
I know.
Okay.
It was like when
So warning to anyone who's listening to our voices.
Yes.
We are about to spoil the hell out of Rogue One.
Yes, we're going to talk about
Star Wars story.
Rogue. And what's cool about this is actually the first time that Craig, Raef, and myself have been able to sit down in any format, recorded or otherwise, and actually talk together about our thoughts on Rogue One. So you're going to hear in this episode just like it would be as if you're sitting down with us actually in Dunkin' Donuts.
That's
kind of
cool.
Talking about what we think of Rogue One, which is really fun. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to time box it to about 40 minutes or so. We're going to, whatever we talk about, But there will be spoilers. So if you've not seen the movie, do not listen. Put a pin in it. Save it for later. Go watch the film, then come back and listen.
I can't wait, too. I got some great...
And don't let us spoil it for you because you don't want this spoiled. What made it great was some of the things we did not know were going to happen that jumped in. It was a lot of fun. So,
right.
All right. So what about expectations? So were you guys going into this thing like it's going to be amazing?
All right, I want to go first on this.
All right, go ahead, Raef.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. It requires a little bit of a back history here, which could make us go down a divergent path, which I don't want to.
Here we go.
I was not a fan of Episode 7.
Okay.
So, my expectations... Oh, and just for the record,
yes,
I like the prequels. I know I'm in the minority with that, but I do.
We've had this conversation before.
Both those counts.
Yeah. TMI.
Mm-hmm.
TMI. Sorry.
So I was 50-50. I really wanted Star Wars Rogue to be the Star Wars movie that I wanted Episode 7 to be, which is rekindled my love for Star Wars, made me nostalgic, made me remember and love the universe, and it totally achieved it, in my opinion.
Yay! Well, that's good.
So my expectations were low based on Episode 7, but then I was very pleasantly surprised and loved the movie.
So we'll come back to why you liked it more than...
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I wanted to stop
Craig,
there.
what were your expectations going in?
I thought it was going to be good. I was a little hesitant about not... I had no lack of faith in the actual movie. My concern revolved all of the naysayers going into it. They did reshoots. That was too dark. They want to lighten it up. Blah, 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 blah. Because I thought the whole concept of doing a Star Wars war movie was awesome. And the more I heard about, they're going to lighten it up, they got to change the ending, blah, 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 the more concerned I got. And I'm very happy to say from the opening moments, although I would have loved to have the Star Wars theme in the opening moments, but other than that, I thought it was great. I did not, on first viewing, see a single or hear a single note that I thought did not ring true. What about you, Russell?
Well, I liked The Force Awakens.
As did I.
But it still was not my favorite Star Wars, although I liked it better than the prequels. My favorite,
What's your favorite?
Star Wars is still, or was...
Wait, I know what your favorite is. Empire.
Yeah, yes, it's Empire, which I think a lot of Star Wars fans would say. I just liked it because it made the universe darker. It just, a lot of cool stuff happened there, and it made it a big person movie, right?
Right.
And what Rogue One nails all of those notes that I like so much. In my opinion, I tweeted this right after the movie without trying to have any spoilers in it, which is I think a good Star Wars movie is all about the characters, which is why I think the prequels did not do well. The characters weren't that interesting. The original movies, the characters were amazing. And in Rogue One, you loved I did anyway. I loved all the characters. I was interested in them. Every little interesting little tidbit that was dropped. That's Force Awakens had good characters, but Rogue One had really fascinating characters. We'll get to the ending, I guess, but that was the saddest part of it.
Well, I thought they did a great job too. They don't give you a lot
Right.
for most of these characters, but they give you enough to build a character around them.
Yes.
To the point where when you're hearing all these critics and a couple, normal real people talking about how the characters were two-dimensional, blah, blah, blah. Like, how else are you going to do a movie like this?
Yeah, I agree with Craig. We didn't want to see a 3-hour development of characters.
No, I was entirely satisfied with what they gave us.
And
yeah,
they gave you
that's what makes it a good movie.
And what's my favorite thing about this, and maybe I'm jumping to the conclusion, but I think they can retcon this too the right way. This movie, in some way that's really hard to explain, I'm going to try, reinforces A New Hope and makes A New Hope a better film.
Correct.
Without changing a single note in that movie. In other words,
correct.
All the stuff in A New Hope that people poked fun at all makes sense. And not only that, like, the end of Rogue One sets up A New Hope for, like, every moment in A New Hope where R2 almost gets captured, those plans almost get lost, are so much cooler now because you know how many people paid the price for those to get to where they were. So it's like, it just makes the whole next movie that much better. So it really, not only was it a great standalone Star Wars story, which is what they build it as, but it strengthens the entire series, certainly
Canon.
4 through 7.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I thought, it was awesome the way it took that. I mean, the exhaust port never really bothered me that much because I was just
but
like,
now
okay,
it makes
it's
total
cool.
sense. Right.
But now it's so much cooler that they folded that flaw into this wider story that's actually a tragedy with all these. Spoiler alert, one more time, everybody dies to get those plans and to get that truth out to the rebel fleet.
Yeah, now I have 3 observations. Let's talk about the exhaust port. So, question for Russ. What do you think my favorite Star Wars movie is?
Well, you like the prequels, so I'm going to say Phantom Menace.
No, New Hope.
Okay, good.
So it's relevant to this discussion.
Yeah, sure.
Now, wasn't there some sort of talk by like the naysayers out there on the internet that say, oh, give me a break. There's this whole looming super complicated Death Star. And really, you just jump inside a channel and launch a couple of torpedoes and the whole thing blows up, right? That's what the critics were knocking, which again, when I saw it as a kid, I'm like, yeah, why not? Jump, that makes sense to me. So my question to you guys is, spoiler, there's a reason one of the main plot points of this movie is, there's a character that built a back door. He built a Trojan horse, or whatever term you want to use. Yeah. Do you think? I can't wait to ask you guys this. George Lucas, on some side margin somewhere, or somewhere in his notes, he had that written out.
No,
because how he had all the movies in his head, or the whole storyline in his head, or are they retconning it to sort of not answer like they care, but to be like, that'd be kind of fun if we played with that concept of creating a backdoor, a saboteur.
I think it's more complicated than that. So I don't think Lucas did have that as a note. Because if he did, I think it probably would have made it into episode 3. So just one little note. I think it's almost a shame that this is a Star Wars story and it's not episode 3. Like if the entire saga was...
you hate episode 3, don't you? I forgot that.
Episode 3 is, if they had combined episode 2 and 3 and told everything they told in 2 and 3 in one movie, and then this was episode 3, because it literally ends, like you can now cut...
I disagree. I think they should put episode 1 and 2 and mash that together.
Whatever.
Then make 3, 2.
Yeah. Well, the love story just sucks, pretty much, is the problem.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The mash all that.
But I don't think...
Actually, you could get rid of 1. You could get rid of 1.
No. Of the prequels, 1 is the best. And we can go talk about that in a different show. Yes, but that... Yeah. Oh,
really?
Because
you know what?
No. Duel of Fates.
Critic consensus has that as that's the least regarded of all of the films.
We don't care about critics.
By a long
that's
shot.
A whole nother. That's
a long shot. But anyway, go ahead.
To your point, Rafe, I don't think Lucas had that foresight, but I do think, and I'm not even sure it was. They didn't write it. I don't think that the writers of Rogue One were writing it as a way to silence the critics of that one particular issue in A New Hope. I think they wrote it this way to put the idea of how dark because this movie did a bunch of cool stuff. First of all, it reinforced how dark the overall empire is. It made Grand Moff Tarkin one of the badassest characters, just short of Darth Vader, which was awesome. Mm-hmm. I love what they did with him, and because they're so evil, there are going to be conscientious objectors in the
Russ, let's be clear.
Yeah.
They want to bring peace to the universe.
Well,
just like Chaos in 40K.
True.
well, yes,
They're all
just
about-
misunderstood.
they want to own it. So the
But no, I'm ribbing you. I
but
agree with you. They're evil.
But what they did was, so they said, well, there would be some people, there would be some scientists. I mean, there's all kinds of historical context for this stuff. It's like you think about the folks in the Manhattan Project and the morals they had, and the challenges they had. All that stuff got weaved into this at different layers that are just so awesome. And the more you think about this movie, the better it gets. And one of the things people have said about this movie that is right on, but I think they kind of mean it critically, is like, this is just a war movie. Yeah, it is a war movie, but that's kind of in the title, right? Star Wars. But yeah, it's a war movie, but it's like taking a lot of the stuff you see in classic war movies and putting it, if you think about A New Hope, Lucas said before, this is supposed to be sort of like a World War II air combat movie done in space, right? Well, an Empire had, one of the reasons I liked Empire so much was for Hoth, because it was a World War I trench battle, in space with giant walkers. And now you have, a Dirty Dozen type movie in space, right? with space battles. And I think it's just, but they brought all this other stuff into it that was just amazingly cool. And I love what they did with, the scientists and the daughter and that whole plot really makes the whole thing really fascinating. And the idea that there's these moral, conscientious objectors within the Empire trying to do the right thing within the confines of what they can get away with. And I just loved it all.
Me too.
So, Craig? To Raef's question.
Well, I loved it all. Also, as I said, I went and saw it a second time, mainly because when I started going online after I saw it, and I didn't have to worry about spoilers anymore, I saw all the connections to Star Wars Rebels, and I was like, oh my god, how did I miss literally every single connection? So, just for those of you who aren't aware. First of all, the Ghost, the main starship in Star Wars Rebels, is actually in the main final battle. Mm-hmm. You have to look for it a little bit, but it's in the main final battle. Chopper, the character robot, the droid from Star Wars Rebels, is in the Rebel base. And at one point, they're paging... excuse me, I can't remember Hera's last name. She's the pilot of the Ghost in Star Wars Rebels. She's a captain, I think, in Star Wars Rebels. They're paging her as a general in the background in the Rebel base, which I just thought was awesome cool. All the way around. Right. Cool little connections here or there.
Well, yeah.
But I thought the way that it expanded the wider universe was awesome. You get to see more of the Empire. Mm-hmm. Krennic and Tarkin are the same rank, which I thought was awesome. And you could tell, but Krennic is, he's one of these. He's a tech wonk, and he's like this development guy, and Governor Tarkin is on command track, so obviously he gets to order him around. But you can see Krennic getting all angry and you can't do this to me, and he goes to Vader to try to go around him. And I just thought that whole deepening of the Imperial side of things was awesome. Mm-hmm. I thought I loved the deepening of the Rebel side, where no longer are we just a plucky group of good guys. Mm-hmm. Now we're like assassins and poisoners and saboteurs and bad guys and good guys that have to do bad. I mean, when
spies.
When Cassian Andor shoots that guy in the back, that informant in the alley, that was insane.
Right.
I mean, that was in a good way, because it was like, oh my god, these are Mal Reynolds level guys now, and they'll kill when they have to kill, but it's eating at him on the inside, and that the depth of that character, and it's just these little drops here or there. Like, some of us carry our prisons with us. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was just awesome. And then to branch off from that, you got Chirrut Imwe and Baz Malbus, the two guys they pick up in Jeddah. Which were awesome also, like force sensitive guy, and we haven't seen just a heavy weapon guy before,
right,
and that thing was just that was just an amazing weapon. I thought they did a great job adding new technology to us into the storyline without making it seem like it didn't fit with all the technology from A New Hope.
Yep,
it all fit seamlessly. The visuals were like Star Destroyer just hovering over Jeddah was amazing. The single generator blasts from the Death Star, incredible visuals. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was just
the new C-3PO. What was it?
Oh
K2?
K2SO.
He was brilliant.
I mean,
So finally,
Alan Tudyk is awesome to start with, and half of his lines were actually ad-libbed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And because he's like, the lines you're giving me, I don't feel like that's like a thing a droid would say. So they were like, "Oh, just wing it. It's digital, so we can change it. It's not like the mouth's moving. We have to worry about it. We'll change it later if it doesn't fit." And like they kept a whole bunch of the stuff that he did.
What I liked about him so much was, so I still think one of the best Star Wars robot characters ever is, of course, HK-47 from BioWare's Knights of the Old Republic. And I remember when this first came out, when Knights of the Old Republic was first released, which came out right after the prequels came out, or the first prequel came out, a lot of people looked at that and said, this is the writing that should have been in the prequels. And HK-47 is this assassin droid, and he's got this sardonic wit that they really managed to capture in H2. And H2 reminded me a lot. I would be surprised to find out that
K2,
K2. I would be surprised to find out that he was not in some way inspired by HK-47, because he very much reminded me of that. And I thought it was awesome, because I've always wanted to see HK-47, some flavor of him get into one of the movies, because I've always thought it would be hilarious and great.
I thought the passive aggression was awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
He was awesome.
Why can she carry a blaster?
Right.
What? You've got a blaster?
Yeah,
I
was really bummed that the whole scene with him dying. You can't, and that's the great thing. They had a lot of characters to develop, because everybody, unlike Force Awakens, where half the cast you all know, so you're just like rooting for. Oh, there's Han Solo again. There's Princess. These guys are all new, and the writers had the tough task, and the directors had a tough task of, you had to love these guys by the end, so that when they all died, you gave a care, right? And
they did that without making the movie a slog.
They did.
They got us to care about the characters.
Every time a person died,
it was an action movie,
and you knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. I mean, you didn't know for sure they were all going to die, but once they started dying, you kind of hit the Firefly Serenity moment. They're all at risk, and then here we go. And you're figuring they probably would, because since pretty much A New Hope starts almost the next scene. Like, there's not a lot of time between this event and the next event. So
what I was hoping for, they delivered. Right? Yeah, I figured, because it's a standalone. I'm like, good. So we'll see some death happen. You know, we won't have the super heroic character. Right. But when the movie started, I was like, I wonder if Jyn and Cassian are going to go, if they're going to die. So I was very pleased to see that the writers had the courage to go ahead and end them too, and I loved the way they did with the Death Star death.
But what they can do, which is fun, is they're going all over the place, the timeline with these future movies, right? So these people could show up again in prequels to this movie. Right?
Yes, that's true.
Because they're going to do young Han Solo, they're going to do all kinds of crazy stuff. Who knows where their paths cross? Right? They can do what they want. Right?
Yeah, but they did a great job with these characters, all of them. And for me, back to Phantom. Number 7, not Phantom Menace. Number 7, I loved Rey as who cannot, and who was the foible to Rey? Who's the other character? He was the he was
Bo?
Finn. No, Finn. Bo didn't win me over, to be honest. Yeah. So, but
Bo
Finn
isn't really much in it.
Yeah, but like Cassian immediately won me over.
Yeah.
Like, he just was great. Oh, and then the acting ability of is it Forrest Whitaker?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God, that was just Saul Guerrera, but the acting that he did, like that part where Jin's there and he's like, "Are you here to kill me?" Like, that was like really poignant, I thought.
And it hints to a whole bunch of stuff going on underneath the surface.
Right.
Yes.
That's what I mean, where I'm like, they seed in these moments that show you how deep and how rich this whole story is, even though they're not showing you all his backstory and showing him splitting away from the rebellion. But instead, what you get is this moment where this close-up of his face where he's twitching as he's like, oh my God, did they send my adopted daughter to kill me?
Right.
It's just unbelievable.
And I liked how they showed a little bit of like we'd already talked about, a darker side to the Rebel Alliance. So we already have a splinter faction within the Rebel Alliance, and when he killed his fellow informant, that was which was very fitting, and he had remorse on his face, so he's not Darth Vader. But and I also liked the classic interplay. This is going to sound all like Englishy, but I liked it. Lucas is well known for the black and the white. Darth Vader's black. Luke Skywalker wears white. And he plays with that, and I loved how Rennick, is it? What's his name, Craig? The administrator.
Krennic.
Frennick.
Yeah.
How he
Frennick.
wears white.
Yeah.
I just thought that was cool. How that was like an opposite, and I think do you think he had Frennick wasn't total evil like Governor Tarkin is, because I think he had a soft spot for Jin's dad, Galen.
I think he was moving. You were seeing the story of him go all the way over. Like he was already pretty gone, I think, in the beginning when he's
right.
Shoots the wife and everything there. But I think he still remembers having a friend in him. Like
Right.
I think so
mean,
too.
you see that flashback.
Yeah, but he's down
that
the road.
Jin has
yeah.
where she's roughly she's not the same age, but she's not much younger than she is at the beginning of the movie. Mm-hmm. And they're on some imperial planet, and they're all having like a cocktail party.
Right.
Yep.
And he's there celebrating with her dad and her mom.
But you also see a little bit of humanity, or he had a soft spot, Frennick did, because he kills all the scientists, but he pulls Frennick out of that line. And I think he knows Frennick is the saboteur, but he pulls him out, and he doesn't kill him. He just smacks him down with his fist.
Right. Well, to me, that was like the betrayal is even worse for him. So he's got even worse ahead of him because they don't need him now.
Right.
So he's going to punt. You come here for a second. I'm going to shoot all your friends. Then I'm going to do even worse to you. And then a proton torpedo lands in the middle of the,
right.
in the middle of the landing pad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but I liked that interplay of the colors there.
Oh, that was cool. Now, what do you guys think about the CGI? So they use CGI.
I wanted to ask you about that.
To bring some characters back. Grand Moff Tarkin, obviously, huge spoiler here.
He's just a governor. Thank you.
Anybody saw this coming, but Princess Leia, obviously, was brought in.
I'm going to go first.
So what do you think? What do you think of that, Raef?
Tarkin, I thought was awesome. Mm-hmm. I had no problems with Tarkin. He was there. By the way, there's a lot of interesting legal ideas about this too. But Tarkin was there. Awesome. Princess Leia looked odd. That's
really. Now, I would say the opposite.
Yeah, I thought,
but I think that's mainly in my head. It's opposite because Tarkin he had so much more screen time.
Yeah, it was the uncanny.
He was a solid character on his own. I mean, he was a major part of the plot, and he was on there for so long. Eventually, I was like, yeah, it's a little. There's just a little. What do you call him, Russ?
Uncanny valley. So the uncanny valley is that your mind detects something's not quite right, and
right.
I got it with Tarkin a little bit. I got it with Leia less. But I was
opposite.
I was okay with it because I thought it was so good to have. Well, and it also happened elsewhere. So the pilots in the X-wings, Gold Leader, all those guys. I think some of that was CGI also because
that wasn't CGI though. That was unused. Was
it unused footage? Well, pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, that story there is awesome because they had access to the Skywalker Ranch, right? And so the movie makers went into the vaults and they were like, okay, cool. We can use some of this. We can use some of that. And they were looking for sound and they were looking. And then they were like, wait a minute. What are in the what are those cans in the back? And the woman who was leading them through the vault was like, oh, that's Star Wars. Like, what do you mean Star Wars? That's all the footage they ever filmed for Star Wars that they edited into the original movie.
Nice.
Well, and they were like, whoa, okay, we're taking that.
So, but
here's
so that was all unused footage. There were unused cuts of those scenes of the Death Star.
This is interesting. I think, thinking as a lawyer, do you guys remember way back when there was I think it was a Pepsi commercial with Elvis Presley was like digitized into the scene, and nobody asked anybody's permission. So Priscilla Presley's like, that's my dad you're showing up there. But of course, with digital technology, you don't need Elvis anymore. You can just digitize him in. And then, so it was really interesting to me to be like, like Princess Leia like Carrie Fisher probably got some royalties for that because it is her likeness. So the law does protect somebody's likeness.
So here's the one. So there was another case, Rafe. You know who tried to pull this trick? No, the Lone Ranger. So the original Lone Ranger, I forget his name, used to go to grocery stores and stuff and wear the mask and, do little things. And the movie studio said, no, we own that likeness.
That's right. They're like, no, we own
the likeness.
Governor Tarkin.
So the Lone Ranger, even though the actor could say, well, I look like him and I'm me, but as soon as you put that mask on, you're the Lone Ranger now and we own that, so you can't go around and do that. and he lost that case, by the way. So,
well,
I think
a more recent one though is in Back to the Future, the
Yeah.
actor who plays Marty McFly.
Yep.
He
Yeah.
did not do the second movie, and they were like, he was like, no, I want this kind of money, and they're like, nah, we're good. And so they digitized in his face in some of the scenes. They had an actor play it, but then they digitized in his face and his vocals.
Yeah.
And he sued and won and said, you can't take my likeness or my vocals without my permission.
So we don't know if they paid Tarkin or not. I mean, the actors.
I
paid
think
Tarkin or not.
they would have.
In the credits, if you had been a true fan and stayed to the very end,
Here we go.
they're all the estate of Peter Cushing and Carrie Fisher are both thanked in the special thanks section at the bottom of the credits.
So they probably were.
So they are credited.
Used permission or whatever. But
here's
I
what I'm
think-
getting at:
go ahead.
is it creates an interesting, and we don't have to we'll end after this. It really kind of creates an interesting scenario as technology advances and advances and advances, where it's like we could have a whole movie with Governor Tarkin in there that could be completely digitized.
Well, we did.
And
Yeah.
so
We just
no, I
did.
mean a whole movie,
Well,
but
but he
it's
was
just
in-
it's kind of fascinating to me.
Well, I think the problem is like if they go to here's where it gets weird, right? So if they in as Craig mentioned, right? You know, a lot of this takes place in Star Wars Rebels. Also, it ties into Rebels. If they have a likeness, if they draw Princess Leia into Rebels, they don't owe Carrie Fisher anything. You know,
no, you're right. It's
so
not the character.
It's the character
it's-
they own.
it's
But
her
I guess if you make it
face.
exactly her face, that's
It's
where it gets
it's
a
her
little fuzzy.
face.
So I guess
Right.
it depends on the contract, right? They probably could write into, and I bet that's changing over time. So my prediction would be
you could
future
right
acting
away.
profile would be, you know, as soon as you put the Cinnabons on, you know, but I think what was cool, what I liked about this was it really helped extend the story. So I loved that Tarkin was in there. I was willing to forgive the uncanny valley that I did notice. It was worth it to me to have, you know, like Jar Jar was CGI for CGI's sake. Like I don't, you know, I mean, like,
Right.
but Tarkin was CGI because they didn't have a choice, and it made the story better and tied it back into the other movies better, right? And same with, I mean, Leia was fan service. Honestly, they probably could have got away without it, but it was kind of a neat thing.
I was thinking that too.
But Tarkin was essential. I think what made it just makes his character that much cooler in the next movie. So I liked it a lot, and I thought it really brought the whole thing together, and I didn't mind it at all. I loved, you know, whatever film photography, whatever technical, you know, tricks they used to get the squadron members back in there and have all the squadrons there was fantastic. And I really like too, they nailed the technology level, and they
Yes.
somehow made it so that when they showed the same exact video of the Death Star, that super simple, you know, 1970s era computer graphic of the Death Star spinning, they did it again, and yet it looked okay. Like they nailed the technology, and for some reason it didn't bother me that in the age of starfighters and spaceships, they had to climb up a giant tube to get data. Right? like can you?
It
imagine?
bothered me the second time I saw it, just a little bit.
But could you imagine?
Me too, Craig.
I was
The
like,
second time.
seriously, every time you have to send a message, you're going to have to climb up that, and
Well, it would probably,
and
be
then you have to
working-
go out on that gantry to realign the dish.
Well, so right. I mean, there's definitely some. Well, I think that part was probably because the automated controls were broken. But the real part of it was just like, why are they storing all these things in giant filing cabinets in the sky?
Right.
You know. But I think that was just sort of like interesting plot point. I kind of let it go.
Yeah, I let it go. You can let it go.
But you know, but they
I
nailed the
assumed
tech
it was
level.
all that was all backup.
Right.
You know, so you didn't
they
get
just-
the best
They
technology.
destroyed the backup. Tarkin's like, we're going to destroy the backup. Right. But I thought they nailed that really cool while still injecting super cool new effects, like the scene where the X-wing crashes into the shield dome.
Oh, that was awesome.
Slides across it like you know, like wood on ice. It was just like
It's
that was
ice,
awesome.
yeah.
Such a cool scene. So I think
Yeah,
they
I
really nailed it.
liked the beach, you know, the infantry type scenes of
Oh,
the
yeah.
beach and the regular soldiers. That was
yeah.
really good, and the pilot was good, and the force sensitive almost Jedi. He was awesome.
He was awesome.
He was awesome. I mean, I read that article you linked to today on Twitter, Russ, about the tactics
Yes.
of the rebellion, and they really, I mean, I didn't think about it that in depth when I was watching it, but when you look back on everything that the rebels are doing when they land, what's the name of Scarif?
Yes.
When they land on Scarif, and how, like, you know, this isn't probably the smartest thing they could do, and clearly they don't have a tactical plan in place. They're like, oh, well, we'll overcome the next obstacle and the next one till we can't overcome one. Oh, that sounds like a great plan.
Right.
But how good they are in small unit tactics.
Right.
Because that's how, that's where they would have shined, and that's what they would have done. And as soon as they get off that ship, they're infiltrating, they're in there, they're setting their bombs. I thought it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that article was pretty interesting because it talked about how, the rebellion always does sort of not always militarily sound things. Like, they send their entire force into a battle. There's no conservation of force. So if they send everybody they have out into these battles, which they do like 3 times in a row, essentially, across 3 movies, they're risking everything on very long odds. And that seems irrational, and it kind of is because they're fighting a really tough situation. But at the same time, you have the regimented by the book, Imperial force who is thrown off because they do things that don't make sense. And in this article I referenced actually talked about the American Revolution. We did things that were kind of crazy, but also very
absolutely right
for the British. And they were like, well, who would fight this way? It's stupid. They could kill them, but they didn't expect it. So we totally caught them off guard. And so it's they do a good job with that. And this particular movie really does nail a lot of those finer points and sets up more of those crazy things down the road in episodes 4 through 7.
Yeah. No, I and it made it more real.
Yeah.
Because they're not doing it to set off to fool the Empire. They're doing it because that's the only option they have.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And
I thought that I loved, and this, I think this came from that article also. I love the image we now have of the Rebel Alliance isn't this,
well-oiled machine.
Uniform. Right. Everybody everybody's going together and we all agree. It's like this loose alliance, an alliance. It's an alliance of all of these people, most of whom are relatively selfish, and they're like, well, I'm not going to do it if you're not going to do it. Well, I'm not going to do it if you're not going to do it. Well, makes no sense if you can't guarantee success, and so at the first sign that there's really going to be a problem, they all shatter and they all start running in opposite directions. I just thought the shading and the granularity they gave to the Rebel Alliance was just, I think this movie is priceless for what it does to the rest of the franchise.
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
And not just as its own thing.
Yeah, not just as a standalone.
But it shines a light that gives new depth and new texture to every other film.
I think it really,
another thing I like too was seeing Darth Vader in that vat.
Oh, that was cool.
The back
and you see... Yeah, and you see like his arms and legs are burnt off, which you don't quite get that in episodes 5, But when I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, he was practically burnt to death.
Right.
Now here's an interesting thing. What planet is that on?
The same planet, isn't it?
Is it? Now that's what everybody's assuming, and I don't have any reason to doubt that it's
lots
Mustafar,
of lava, so right? Lava.
Except it's the only location in the entire movie that is not given a placard.
Yep.
Isn't that weird?
Which is weird, yeah.
Yeah.
It's either they assumed we would know, or there's some reason they didn't name it,
or they couldn't decide. They're like, "Where's it going to be?"
They didn't assume it because they labeled Yavin 4.
Right.
Yeah, good point.
Which everybody's going to know Yavin.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I loved Scarif. I love the fact that we saw new terrain planets. I love the fact that still in Star Wars, any one planet only has one climate.
Terrain
I love that.
Yeah.
That's true. And I love that we saw the Pirates of the Caribbean planet.
Yeah.
I
thought it was the Dubai planet because it looked like
could have been the Dubai. Oh yeah, because it's like a man-made island.
It's like the man-made island thing. It looked like Dubai.
Okay, I buy it.
Yeah, that was pretty cool too.
The Iceland planet where Jin's family was living at the beginning of the movie.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Every planet is just one environment on Earth. It's kind of interesting.
Exactly.
Right.
I don't know why, but it's back to that scene on the Iceland planet. Yep. We had that green grass and then the black soil.
Oh yeah.
And the black stormtroopers were super cool. But what I liked, and there's Krennic, and the wind was blowing his cloak. Krennic. He was blowing it into him.
Yeah,
which I don't know why. Yeah. It's rather than the traditional flapping behind him.
So the Death Troopers were cool too because they were a nod to one of the earlier video games, the Jedi Knight video game series, because they were introduced in that. And so to have them in this movie was pretty cool because that movie takes place. That video game takes place in this era also, which is pretty neat. So
is that what they were? They
had a lot of cool tie-ins.
Death Troopers.
They had a lot of cool tie-ins to Rebels, to video games, to like. just all kinds of stuff was woven in. They had all kinds.
Well, I
of
think they're trying to make people feel better about the fact that so much of the extended universe got wiped away.
Right, so they're kind of
when Disney assumed the proctorship.
So there's nods to those things still, which is nice.
Another cool little trivia thing, Rafe, about that planet, that grassy area. They found that location on the last day of scouting. They were like, we don't know. We've found this one place. We're probably going to do it that way. Let's take we have the helicopter one more day. Let's go ahead and just take it out and go south instead of north. And they found that location right on the coast. And there's twice as much of that crazy, vibrant grass in real life. And they actually had to edit it out because it looked fake.
Wow.
Which was it's awesome.
And that scene struck me too. So much of that was shot with just these very simple little pylons coming out of the earth.
Yep.
You know, that's it. No fancy effects. Just that green grass, the stormtroopers, Krennic, black soil,
and the blue milk.
And what was the blue milk? What were they talking about?
The blue milk the blue milk is what they're feeding Luke at the beginning of your favorite movie on Tatooine.
Yes.
That's what Aunt Beru is pouring at the table. And so now it's a thing. And if you look in the background, half the movies have blue milk somewhere.
Okay.
And in the opening of Rogue One, when they're running through their little house, it's on the counter like they were getting ready for breakfast, and it zooms in on the blue milk.
Blue milk, yeah. But it just struck me that all it took was a little pylon. You're like, Star Wars.
Oh, yeah,
we're in
exactly.
Star Wars land. Yeah.
Well, the other Star Wars service was, of course, I have a really bad feeling about this. But
they didn't let him finish.
K2 doesn't finish it, which is awesome. It's like, don't.
He doesn't finish it, and they all die.
Right.
Wait, what are you talking about?
There's your lesson right there. In almost every Star Wars story ever.
In every Star Wars movie.
Someone says, I have a bad feeling about this.
I have a bad
feeling.
Usually it's Han Solo. If he's there.
It's a different
but it has been other people as well.
It's a different character.
So K2SO, as they're about to go up and get the data plans, goes, I have a bad, and they both go, shut up. And he stops talking.
Yeah.
And then they all die.
That was a funny scene when K2SO, when Casson says to Jin, no, you stay here in the ship when he's going to go up and use the sniper rifle. And she's like, why? Why do I have to stay here? He's like, well, you're the only one. Those are the plans. And K2S, it's like, and she's like, that's not true. We all heard them. And then he repeats it. That's what you said.
Yeah,
he was awesome.
He's awesome.
He's awesome.
I will stay beside you, Jin. Cassian said I had to.
Yeah. Oh, that was perfect. So I don't know if we're wrapping up or not, but I have some wrap. We don't have to wrap up, but
let's wrap it up because it's been a little while. So
all right, these are my wrap up thoughts to this. I have a distinct memory of watching the movie. What was the year, Craig? 76? 72? 77. So however old I was, I'm going to do the math. 10 years old, maybe 11. I don't know. And I remember watching A New Hope. This is why it's my favorite movie. And leaving the movie theater and feeling elated and sad at the same time. Like I knew that was the best movie I've ever seen, ever. Yeah. Fell in love with all the characters. The last scene was so poignant where they're getting the medals. I mean, I was in that age where that was like cool. And feeling sad that the story wasn't going to continue for... Actually, you didn't even know then there'd be a sequel.
Nope. Right. No, you didn't.
So I was like, that's over. I will never experience that again. And I just remember standing in the parking lot and feeling that emotion. And to me, Star Wars Rogue tapped into that emotion because I think I knew they were all going to die. So I had that same sadness.
Now, what did it do for you, Rafe? Because I'm curious, because Force Awakens didn't do that for you. So what did Rogue One do that worked for you that Force Awakens didn't?
I can tell you, I think in how Force Awakens didn't work. To me, Force Awakens was A New Hope all over again. Mm-hmm. Same storyline, and you just had the Mega Death Star this time. They even went into channels like X-Wing shooting the main Mega Death Star, and Harrison Ford I thought was not good at all. And the only characters I really liked were Kylo Ren and the two we already talked about. Right. And so I just felt like I was watching A New Hope, reskinned. Right. So this movie was a new movie. New characters, new terrain, new scenes, new colors, infantrymen running all around, blowing stuff up. a new twist on the Force, how it kind of connects into other people that sort of can use it but aren't Jedi, and the heavy weapons guy. So that's what I thought 7 was going to be. Mm-hmm. Keeping the canon, but then giving us a whole new story. And so it's just what I expected going into 7. I didn't expect a reskinning, in my own words. So Star Wars Rogue One was a new movie.
That's fair. That's what's really, really cool. Mm-hmm. Well, Craig, what were your final sort of wrap-up thoughts?
My final, I really loved The Force Awakens. I understand the parallels to the original, but I did not. It didn't bother me in the slightest. I found enough new stuff that I just loved it anyway. However, I did find it jarring that all of the tech, and it makes perfect sense, and I have no problem that they did this, but that all the technology has advanced because it's been 30 years, so everything's going to look a little different. I made it almost not so much like a Star Wars movie to me. So it wasn't so much that it paralleled it as that it had a lot of differences, small aesthetic differences to me, and I felt like Rogue One, because it had all of those old things that really, like Raef just said, that tapped into. I remember walking out of the theater. We were on vacation in New York, upstate New York, when we went and saw it, I think. And I remember walking out of the theater feeling like the world was different. Like my whole world had kind of expanded a little bit, and things that I had never even thought about were like possible, or what I think I was feeling was I was feeling a connection, to something that I hadn't felt before. Like this is going to be my thing. This is going to be like I liked spaceships, and I liked Space 1999 or whatever, and I like fantasy, and I read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and all those. But this was like, oh my God, this is going to be it. Like, this is going to be an important thing to me. And I was only 8, so I wasn't articulating that, but I just felt like some deep connection. And I felt that again with Rogue One, because I was seeing all of those things again for the first time. And then when you add Grand Moff Tarkin, or Governor Tarkin, and you add, Gold Leader, and you add Red Leader, and poor Gold 5 or Red 5.
Red 5 made a slot. Made a slot for a new guy. We need a new guy there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it was just awesome, and all of those little tie-ins. That not only did they tie it into my original love for everything, then they tied it into all the cool stuff that's going on now. Then they added all the cool, like the Death Troopers and everything else. It really, it's connective tissue to everything. And I thought it was genius, because it's, in my opinion, it's Disney putting their stamp on the whole universe, going, okay, we have the stewardship of this now, and look what we're going to do. It's all connected.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we are going to, don't worry about this. We've got it. And you just sit back and enjoy the ride. That's kind of how I felt.
Me too.
I love the way you said
I
that.
felt, what? Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, I love the way you said that, because that's exactly what I think it did. It was Disney showing, we know how to find the right people to make the kind of movies you Star Wars fans want to see, but also bring in new people to love the universe again. And what I think is, I think the most amazing thing about this isn't that someone made a new original story in the Star Wars universe that was good. Yeah. I think the most amazing thing, and it did do all that, I think the most amazing thing about it was they actually improved the overall franchise. I mean, it improves the overall story, and this could have easily been a one-off story that very only tangentially affected the main plot, right? I mean, there could have been a whole side, and it would have been fine as a side story with all these two characters that still lived and never showed up again. We would have been okay with that too. But it was really cool. They played a very dangerous game, because it could have been very easy to screw this up and actually make the whole franchise worse.
That's a good point. I never thought of that.
They didn't. They didn't play it safe. They went big, and I think it paid off in a way that's really exciting. And so, Craig, I think you're right. I love how you summarize it there. I think that's. Well,
I would go one step further, Russ. I don't think Disney is telling us we're going to make the stories you want.
Yeah.
I think they're telling us that the stories you want fit in.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? It's not so much we're just going to give you what you want because that's how to make money.
Also,
they're like we are stewards of this whole galaxy.
Well, just think what this movie's name did by itself to the whole idea of Rogue Squadron now. Right? Like Rogue Squadron is named now after the sacrifice these guys just made. Like that whole thing.
I didn't catch that.
Thing, like in that moment, I mean, how did you guys feel when you knew? I mean, you knew the plans were going to make it out. And I was on the edge of my seat watching that rebel soldier try to hand the plan card to the next guy through the door with Vader coming at him. And even when the guy on the other side of the door gets the frickin' plan, he still gets killed with a lightsaber through the frickin' door. So Vader comes across as like totally badass, which he should. And meanwhile, you're on the edge of your seat. You know the plans get through, but there's still like you can see like it just elevates the whole story that much more. In the original trilogy, many Boffins died for those plans, but you don't really realize how many people really died for those plans and how close it was. Right. The entire rebellion got wiped out for those plans. Yeah. And I just think it's really, I think it's really amazing movie making to be able to take a story written so long ago, movies produced so long ago, and to write a piece that so elegantly not only fits but actually elevates the entire thing. I think. I really don't understand the critics of this film. I mean, sure, you can pick apart little things, but
I don't read crap in the internet. There's people criticizing it.
Well,
not
naysayers. It's getting well received. Don't get me wrong; people love it. I mean,
it's in the low 80s, so there are plenty of negative reviews.
Yeah, you can't get in the 90s unless you're an art piece. I mean, there's not going to be a Star Wars movie.
No, that's not true.
Yeah. Well, what's a New Hope?
The Force Awakens was in the 90s.
Was it? Is it still? All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, never mind then. I think this is a better movie than Force Awakens, and I like Force Awakens. I don't take anything away from it. But Force Awakens worked in large part based on fan service because we wanted to see what happens next to the main characters. So there was
that's what I'm saying.
The Force Awakens was a safe bet because you're taking the characters we love and extending their story. Now you still got to do it right. I'm not saying it was easy. You can't screw up Han Solo. I mean, you can't screw up Princess Leia. They got them right. Han died, but we you got to have
No, that's coming.
But in this one, they had all new characters they had to work with, and they could have easily broken some elements of the story. I mean, you think about the kind of like the midichlorians from back from the original series and how people didn't like that because they felt it broke what the Force was to them in their head, right? So it could have been very easy to break some of the main plot points here. You could have broken the Grand Moff Tarkin's character here very easily, but you didn't. They reinforced it. They could have broken a lot of the other characters, and they didn't. So I think it's great. I just really
I think
enjoyed it.
To back that up, Russ, what they did too, like when Darth Vader in that very last scene where he's going after the digital card, he's the Darth Vader of 4, 5, and 6, lightsaber wise.
Yes,
he's not the twirling, whirling dervish that you see in 1, 2, and 3, the lightsaber battles, which is weird. Because it's like, why are the lightsabers better in the prequels? You know what I mean? But they didn't do that with Darth Vader. They made him the Darth Vader that just fights from his wrist, but he still was badass because he's using his force powers to throw people into the ceiling and throw people to the side. And I liked how they kept that continuity, I guess.
It was excellent. So there you have it. There's our thoughts on Rogue One before Dunkin' Donuts kicks us out.
That's right. They're all looking at us dirty because we just spoiled the whole movie.
Spoiled it for half the room. Sorry about that dude in the corner. I apologize. You should have seen it opening weekend.
We'll have to have a bonus episode where we talk prequels.
We've already done that a couple times.
Okay. I think we already have done that. Yeah.
I think we have done that. Yeah.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Raef, and we'll look forward to having you on the main show here in a week or so.
Wouldn't miss it.
All right.
Awesome.
See y'all soon. Thanks for purchasing a D6G Lost Chapter. Supporting the show helps it grow.